I hear the phrase "jack of all trades, master of none," and that's just a very defeating and kind of disparaging phrase, and that was so sad to me because I felt like I could do something of substance, and that's how it kind of integrated in my mind. And now I sort of see it as like Renaissance man or woman.
Welcome to the Red, Green, Blue Podcast.
All right. So welcome to the Red, Green, Blue Podcast. We got Meghan Bean today, and she has been she worked on the Conan show as an intern, which is pretty interesting, and find out how that happened and what she learned there. And she's a stand-up comedian, and she's an artist, writer, and general creative. And we're going to talk about how those things combine.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to know is how did you get on the Conan show? Because that's a random feat to achieve.
So I had started doing stand-up comedy in college, and I just always kind of been interested in comedy. And so I spent that summer.
Where would you perform in college?
It was called Humor U at BYU.
Okay, Humor U. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so I tried out for Divine Comedy, the sketch group, and it was meant to be.
And Humor U made the choice. Yes. No, that's fine.
Yeah, so it was fun. And
just so you guys know, Divine Comedy became, the select members of those became Studio C, so it's kind of a famous comedy group.
Yes.
But anyway, go on.
So I had 1 year left before like my finals, I had like one semester left. And so I was thinking, oh, okay, there's all these college internships that I need to take advantage of, like, while I still can. And so I just applied to like everything I was interested in. And I made like custom resumes. So I like Photoshopped myself into the resume with Conan. I just made it look super fun. That's like why I got a graphic design degree partly, was I loved art, but I also I was like, okay, but if I have these skills, I can use them for anything else I'm interested in. You know?
Yeah.
And so I just sent it in, and I also had applied to Fox that year for a creative internship, and I got offered one at Sony, Conan, and Fox. And Sony I had like a really good interview with. I liked the people, but I was like, I have to do Conan. Like, that's so much fun. The environment.
Also, you got offered two.
Three.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Those are very competitive internships.
Yeah.
You're competing against everybody, against Harvard and everyone. So that's pretty impressive.
Harvard, wow.
Well, no, you really are. You're competing against everybody.
I'm scared for myself in retrospect.
No, really. And honestly, that's one of the glorious things, the hubris of youth, is that you don't know how hard it is to do these things, and you just go for it.
Yeah. No one's told you yet.
No one's told you that that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like a girl from Utah doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from California.
Oh, from California, we were aware.
Why.
Well, a girl going to college.
But yes, in Utah. So I got offered Fox and Conan kind of like the same day, and I was like, I really want to do both of these. So this was like another moment of hubris. Was I just asked like, hey, the Conan internship, like, can I do it half and half of the week? And I didn't think they'd say yes, but they did. And so the first
you did 2 internships?
that summer.
That is amazing. They let you do that once again.
And it was funny because everyone at Conan was like, I was like known as the girl with no connections. They were like, I don't know how you're working here, whatever. And like,
no, that's a common thing. Like I've had a few jobs and internships like that. And the senior people will come up to you and say, so who are your parents?
Yeah, totally.
Because they just totally expect to know your parents, and your parents are somebody. I'm like, no, you don't know my parents.
Yeah.
But you're like the only one there.
Yes.
Who that's the case.
My parent is God, and he made this happen.
Yeah.
So,
it's like everybody else. And then you talk to other people. It's like, my daddy owns an insurance company that supplies insurance to the studio or something like that. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like there really are like film families, like those way military families. And they've got all these connections and it helps their kids out.
Yeah.
It's like a royal court. No, Hollywood. No, it is. It's really like a royal court. That's why Nepo babies are so common.
Interesting.
But anyway.
Love this insight. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just being around it for a while. Yeah. In fact, fun fact, I had a friend who worked at, what is it? She's a crafter. She's in New York, but Martha Stewart. And Martha Stewart, like every other week, would come up to her and say, so who are your parents? And her parents were like professors in Utah. And she's like, yeah, but over and over again, she would ask her that. I think she just wanted to make conversation.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've had the same thing happen to me with many other people.
Yeah.
But anyway, go on.
Okay.
So yeah, so you had no connections. You were known as the girl with no connections.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because while I talk about that resume, I think that definitely, I just knew they were going through a pile of like these white Word docs, and then mine comes up, my face is on it. It stands out. And so I think that got me in the door. I will say that they then asked for a regular resume. So I don't know if that's good advice or not, but
no, I think it's totally good advice. Like, I mean, that's like, in fact, this another related story. Mike Judd, who did Beavis and Butthead, when he sent in his tape, again, he had no connections. He did sketches on the packaging of Beavis and Butthead and said real life animation inside.
Yeah. And
because you got to realize, like, the gatekeepers, again, we've had another podcast where we sort of talk about this. Gatekeepers, the decision maker is like 3 levels away from actually looking at resume.
Yeah.
And so really your first goal is to have this person who graduated from Bryn Mawr 1 year ago and mom is a agent somehow, got hired by Conan to go through the resumes, and you have to get through that. And so they'll go through 1,000 resumes and narrow it down to 50. Yeah. And that's the hardest cut to make. Right. And then if you're competent, from that point on, it's really if they're looking to see if you're incompetent. But if you make it through, you have a good chance. You have a much better chance of going through. So the fact you got 3 offers, you got accepted to 2 means you did the right thing. I got accepted
to 3 actually.
You got accepted. You got accepted at 3, but you're able to do 2. Yes. Yeah. That means you did the right thing with your resume. So yeah, if you can think of any way to make your resume stand out, that's a big plus.
And I think a personality trait of mine that helped me get ahead in general, and I think can others, is so my mom always asks, like, okay, are you a rule breaker or a rule follower? And I consider myself like, I don't follow dumb rules. Do you know what I mean? Like if I took a Machiavellian test or whatever, like I think I would score like a good person, but I'm not like letter of the law, like, no, we need to do that. We need to follow this just because it's the way it's done or whatever.
Yeah.
And like if I'm like, okay, what's a way I can, I don't know, because you see opportunities and you take them, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's art. You have to think outside of the box.
Yeah,
right?
Well, like your friend, like sending in the tape, it's like,
well, that's not my friend. That's Mike Judd. I wish he was my friend. So Mike Judd, he did Beavis and Butthead, King of the Hill.
No, I know who he is.
Extract. Yeah, I know he's huge. But it all began because he was a programmer and he wrote. He did his animations on the exterior of the package.
I love that.
And he had no connections.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's a really something to think about, if you're ever cold applying. But honestly, I think it's just great. I mean, of course you were from California. Where were you from in California?
San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. But that's not like in it.
Yeah. It did have, it's sort of like in California, there's some bleed over from, just being in California. Like,
kind of like a new state in California.
So I think one resume point I was really able to, I think got me in was I worked for John Madden. He had like a studio where they did like Disney commercials or events or things like that. And so I helped with, I was just an assistant there, but I was really trying to, I was a talent intern there. And I applied to a bunch of different, monologue intern, general intern, whatever.
Oh, John Madden,
and I got
as in
picked.
John Madden football.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, he still lived there? Even though
I think he's gone.
No, he's gone. But when you were there, he was there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting because he was a coach for the Oakland Raiders.
Yes.
But I thought you'd move on.
Yeah.
With that. Go on.
And sorry, where were we?
Oh, yeah. So you had the 2 internships.
John Madden going.
How you got in there.
Yeah. So the talent internship, how it works is there were a bunch of general interns and then there were specialty ones. So there was 1 music intern, there were 4 talent interns, and there's like 2 monologue interns, you know what I mean? And so the talent one was one that I really wanted other than monologue. And I think they picked me for that one because I kind of sold my, hey, hey, I've been around celebrities before. You know what I mean?
No, it's true. That's a big thing.
Yeah, and that's important. So that phase of my life, I was so into, I read all the magazines. It
Like
was
Us
disgraceful.
Weekly and
Like
People Magazine.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I was so excited because like I loved celebrities. I had like a little YouTube show where I would like make jokes about celebrities and things like that. And so I, you know, and do you want me to talk about like what I did there? Or?
Yeah, what you did there. Yeah. So what did you learn at Conan? Like what was like to me, I mean, this is something I encourage people to do. I don't know if that's changing with the internet. I mean, you should just kind of go for it, I guess. But like working in LA on a major show or with a major person, even just for a few weeks, just seeing how it works is really will help you your whole career.
Totally.
You know, just you seeing how like it took a lot for people to get like at the Conan show to get to that point, and you just see people are really good at their job.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What did you learn? Or first thing that struck you when you got there?
Oh, first thing.
Especially doing a show that's produced every night. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I started out just in like a daze of like the high of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's like
so
this dream is somehow come true.
Yes. Yeah. And
this was an abstraction on the TV, and now I'm here.
Right. Yeah. And I really felt like I'm on a good path here. Like I think just being around, kind of like you said, makes you feel like it's not an idea anymore. You know what a studio looks like, and somehow that just makes it concrete, seeing the literal concrete. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it makes it real. Yeah.
And now you're like, okay, whether it's hard or not, I know it's real, and like I could do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's like when I worked for a director in LA, and I've talked about this previously, but it's like kind of a double whammy of wow, they're really good at this, and also they're just people.
That's what I was.
I mean, you're just kind of like they're normal.
Yes.
They make mistakes. They're kind of weird at times.
Yeah.
You know, and like they're not different than I am. Yeah. Honestly.
So that's literally what I was gonna say was like meeting all these celebrities specifically. I was like, wow, they are just people, because my job was to, I'd walk them into the green room. And
wow. So you interacted directly with them. Yeah. You're like the hostess for it.
Yeah. I'm the girl who got Adam Scott Cantaloupe. It's true.
There you go.
Yes. So, and then, they had like a music room where the band hung out, and then the green rooms where, the celebrities were and everything. Yeah. And then everyone would come down. So I got to meet a lot of the writers and stuff too, because they'd all come down to the green room to watch the show. And yeah, just meeting. So one thing I learned is like, I feel like to make it an entertainment, you have to be either not a good person or like a really good, cool person.
Well, I think it kind of, they go either direction.
Totally.
That's it's like, like every encounter you have with somebody, you have this power over them because they know you. I mean, like, so let's say if you're John Wayne, right? I mean, just
Gacy.
What? Well, I'm just saying that like you're a big celebrity. Yes. Everybody's seen you in a movie, but you don't know them. And so you're kind of in a position of power whenever you meet somebody.
Yeah.
And they know you, but you don't.
Yeah.
So I think you can either decide like, well, I want to be a jerk to everybody and use that power to be a jerk to everybody.
Yeah.
Or I want to use that power to be nice to everybody.
Totally.
And it kind of amplifies what was in you.
Yeah.
And I've seen both directions.
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you have too.
Like Conan struck me as like a really good person. I don't know him enough to say that, but like he just like, some people just like emanate certain.
Yeah. Well, especially he's the man, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think this is just going off, but it's very unusual for somebody like him to share the limelight as much as he does. The way he's like, here's my assistant, whatever, and let's do a bit with her.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I'm going to do bits around the office. Like
totally.
And even the guy who used to sit on the couch with him, sort of.
Andy?
Andy. Yeah, Andy. They want as much attention as possible.
Yeah.
So that's why you've never seen another late night host have similar dynamics or do similar things. He seems to be a very generous person. I do think it's because he comes up through writing.
Yeah.
And less so from acting.
Totally. And I think
so
he seemed like just humble for who he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what helps you stay like a great comedian as you get bigger and bigger, because also something I learned there, like I met a lot of like, or I at least was 10 feet away from like a lot of the great, legendary actors. Or
everybody who's coming through on that show. Yeah.
And it was really interesting just being in a room with them, because they're not acting like, okay, people are watching me right now. And I wasn't watching them, but it was just like, I was interacting with them as like people unassumingly. And so they were just being humans. And
well, they didn't need to impress you at all.
Exactly.
Because you were, the person who was supposed to get them what they wanted.
Yeah.
How you treat the least of me, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one thing I learned was just like how when you get to that echelon, like I think some of them kind of go the Conan route, or they turn the other way where it's like, I'm above all this now and I can rest on my laurels. Like, can I mention, is it bad to mention
go ahead, let's
comedians?
mention names. Let's TMZ this. We've done that a few times actually.
I'm not going to mention
go ahead, you can
someone
say names.
I met. No, I didn't meet Jerry Seinfeld. He did answer a question at a show once for me, but I didn't like meet him at the show or anything. But like sometimes some of his, like I loved Seinfeld, I love his stuff, but I think he's an example of someone who sometimes rest on his laurels a little bit as far as like the kind of comedy he does. Like,
well, I think, as far as like Jerry Seinfeld's like career, I mean, I think once you've had such a big hit,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's hard to like, you're like, well, it's hard to live up to it again. I mean, you can see that with like the woman who wrote Twilight and the woman, Harry Potter and stuff. It's just once you've really, really knocked out of the park, it's hard for you to even go out again. And also you're just so freaking rich. You're like, why should I risk this? So no, it's a complicated thing. And that definitely, I do think success is sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
But I'm sure he's not complaining.
At least for the everyman kind of comedian. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I've waited in line and I've, those kind of, sorry, I thought my voice cut out.
No, it's fine. Yes.
Anyway,
well, I mean, have you seen Cars, Comedians, and Coffee?
Yeah, no, I love that show. And I don't mean he's resting on his laurels as far as like not doing other projects. I meant more like the vibe of his stand up. And I think his stand up's really good. And so I just mean it's more when he does interviews and stuff, the way he kind of like he'll literally say like, oh, I already made my show. Like I don't have to,
No, again, it's like when it's such a big hit and it's still hit.
But then he gets mad when like his joke doesn't land. And it's like, because it's not as modern. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, you can't, that's why.
No, no, it's true. It's, it's like it's easy. There's a thing with pop stars. What is it? Taylor Swift said this, that you get trapped in the age of when you became famous.
Yes. And I always say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Taylor Swift got trapped at age 17.
Totally.
And, Jerry Seinfeld, he got trapped at age 40 sort of way. No. And I do think it becomes partially because their interactions with people become no longer normal.
Yeah.
And so it kind of stunts their development. Yeah. Well, the struggles that most people go through.
Yeah. Because they also say fame is a form of trauma, actually.
Yeah.
And that happens with trauma as it freezes you at certain ages.
No, yeah. No, again, I do not envy famous people. I have serious wondering. I don't know why people want to be famous. I think they just don't really know what it means. They think being famous equals being rich. Yeah. But that's not necessarily true. You can be famous without being rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or loved. But again, it's not the same. And my observation with celebrities is generally when you meet them in person, they're 6 inches shorter than you expect. They look 6 years older than you expect. They're more insecure than you think.
Yeah.
And more insecure than the characters they play. And they're generally a lot smarter than the characters they play.
Yeah. Well, and I think people play their insecurity better than others. Do you know what I mean? Like some people deny it and then it like comes out of them in other ways and they like are rude to people. Like I think people will do anything to put their stuff on you. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like I think if they're insecure, they try to make you insecure. Like I encounter that a lot with like pursuing entertainment, right?
Yeah.
It's like you always just hear people say like, it's 1,000,000 to 1, almost nobody makes it. And I'm like, it's always some guy who's never done it and just heard that from another person who said it from another person. And it's like, I think if you're pursuing entertainment, you have a unique path ahead of you and you're not going to get unique advice that applies to you from the general masses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and there's all these platitudes of like people trying to put things on you, like these kind of limiting beliefs, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of got, I used to let that get to me and I don't anymore. And we can kind of get into that later because we're still at Conan.
We're still at Conan. We're still the happy times beginning in. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what gets you hooked.
Yes.
So what now? Do you have any like stories from Conan you want to share? Because I'm sure everyone likes a good story with celebrities involved.
So, and I want to say this where I don't like someone from Conan doesn't watch this and think, not that they would, but or anyone that wants to hire me in the future
thanks.
isn't
Conan
like,
watches
great.
this
Like
podcast
we hired
every
her.
day.
But like
Every
we
day
hired,
he emails me.
well, I heard Meghan Bean was on it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh my goodness, Meghan Bean, that really great girl who worked in the green room.
Well, it's funny because
Yeah.
he's hosting the Oscars tomorrow, which I'm excited about. But I actually got, while I was in there, the stage manager for Conan stage manages a lot of award shows. And so I heard through the grapevine, like, hey, if you can kind of get on her good side, she'll hire you to like manage the seat fillers and stuff like that. And you can hang out there in the green rooms at the shows. And so, you know, I'm fetching Ludacris and Advil or,
Yeah.
and
So tell the story of fetching Ludacris and Advil.
that was just more like a thorough example. Because when I was there, I went to the what's the sports one? It was the NFL Honors, and Conan, I believe, was hosting that one. And I remember seeing him across the room, and he kind of looked at me like he recognized me, which obviously I like worked there, or whatever. And I was like, oh, I feel like I just had like a moment with Conan.
No, that's true. Should have gone up and talked to him.
I'm
He probably
his,
did
like,
remember you.
I'm now like one of those people that like your brain can pull from for dreams. You know how you can't put people in your dreams you've never seen before? I can be like an extra in Conan's dream and all these.
There you go. Well, no, you just, I don't know. I don't know. I guess that's the thing. Like when you're young, you're like a celebrity. Everybody is really interested in how you're doing. That's something that goes away as you get older. But yeah, especially if you're a young, pretty girl. No, it's weird. No, you'll remember you. He probably did remember you. But
That's
anyway,
nice.
Yeah.
And so some stories that I feel comfortable telling where I'm not betraying anybody.
Yeah, you can tell good stories.
Yes.
You know.
Well, I remember like a lot of the Friends cast came in, and I'm not going to say which one it was, just because it's. I just want to obfuscate a little bit, because. I remember he was cast of Friends. He was sitting on the massage chair and he like couldn't work the buttons, and he was like really mad about it. And then it was like one of the interns helped him, and it was like just the power button right there, and he was like so mad the rest of the day.
Good that he was so dumb.
So I remember I met Bill Burr. So I felt so stupid because he came in the room. I was carrying his suit in, and I'm like, do you want, I was just so flustered. I was like, do you want me to put this in your room? Which is such a dumb question, but he, picture how Bill Burr reacts to it. He's like, yeah, of course I do. You know what I mean? And I can't remember what he said, but it was just such a Bill Burr response where I'm like, all right. And it's fun because my interaction, even if it's a negative one or whatever, it was like such a Bill Burr experience with Bill Burr. And it
was like, he was mean to you. You know?
I want that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah. What is it? There's, stand-up comedian said, a famous one, that every time he's met him, Bill Burr's yelled at him. So he thinks there's definitely something going on with that guy.
Yeah.
But okay, do you have any other stories?
I have a lot, but sometimes I need prompts just to like get back into.
You get back and remember it.
Yes.
Like, what's the most famous person you met there?
Oh, at the time, Chris Pratt was really big.
Oh, Chris Pratt, he's still big.
Yeah, but he was like
Guardians of the
extra
Galaxy.
big then. Like he had just been, and so that was fun. It was really fun because one of my jobs was like I would go to the graphic design place every day to go fetch the names for the door.
Yeah.
And so that's how I found out, was like seeing what names were printed. And that day I was like, Chris Pratt's coming. It's funny because a lot of my favorite people I've met are just like niche comedians that like other people wouldn't find that exciting. Like Tig Notaro, at the time she was like niche and now she's bigger, but I loved meeting Tig Notaro. You can notice a difference between like comedians and like actors. You know what I mean? Like
what's the difference?
Comedians were like, they just like felt like I could just like relate to them more or something. Like you could see them kind of their mind scanning for jokes, or like they were kind of more like everyman, I guess. And the actors it was interesting because the ones that were, really famous or like obviously famous or just like a little, or just like not really that famous, but kind of, you know what I mean? Those were like the most, those were the worst to work with, I think. Like, for example, like Lindsay Lohan, super nice. Her sister Allie is like a diva.
Okay. No, that's the interesting thing too. I've noticed is that
with insecurity again. Yeah.
Well, also it's like they just barely got this power and they don't know what to do with it, and they're kind of like playing with it.
Yeah.
But if they've been famous for a while, they kind
Yeah.
of get over
The
that.
comedians-
Or the good ones do, or
Yeah.
they get much worse.
I loved meeting people who just kind of got a big break. Like they were so excited and they're like, I'm at Conan. And like, this is a bad example because Natasha Lyonne was like, she's always had a great, film history or whatever. But like at that time she was really hitting it with Orange is the New Black and everything. And I just watched her come in and she was so like, hi, hi everybody. Like she was so nice. And she just kind of had that glow of like, I don't know. I like when
she couldn't believe that she was there.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just, on the tryout line.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
she had been on the tryout line for 15 years.
Yeah.
And she's going to be on the show.
And I like when...
So her dream was coming true.
Exactly. And you like watching people's dream come true and people who are going to appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. And let's see what else. There's literally like so much. I'm sorry. I would have... If I knew this was the prompt,
Oh,
I
no,
would have
that's
thought
fine.
more.
That's fine. Okay.
If I think of more, I can jump back.
now, looking back now, what's the biggest thing you learned then?
Ooh. Well, one thing was just the environment. I think I learned was like a great place for me. Like something about when you're in LA, you can be doing the most boring thing as a job, but just the fact that you feel like anything could happen, like that's enough. You know what I mean?
That's actually a very common thing with people who live in LA.
Yeah.
I've noticed that they all feel they're like one step away.
Yeah.
Like just one step away from being Steven Spielberg.
Or even like, but not even like, sure. Like,
or
like someone's going to scout me tomorrow.
A Tom Cruise.
Yeah. But it's also just like, it's such a fun industry where it's like anything could, like that day, one of the days Marshawn Lynch was going to jump into a ball pit. And so, the prop people were getting together at the ball pit and like, just in that sense, like just surprises, randomness.
Oh yeah. Well, you can just have random jobs. Like, I mean, what's more random jobs, especially, and everybody, not everybody, there's a lot of people doing kind of boring jobs in LA. I mean, there's doctors and dentists and lawyers there and stuff.
Right.
But I had a friend who'd worked on a Japanese infomercial done in English, but all the sound was going to be dropped and then it was going to be dubbed into Japanese. I think it's the most random project you can possibly do. And I don't know. Yeah. And the same thing, like like when I was working there, I was watching Tyra Banks on TV. It's like, she was like next fashion model. And then I made the connection like, oh shoot, we did like a shoot. There was like a shoot we did with Tyra Banks like a few weeks ago. And I didn't really connect like the person was on TV with the person who was at our shoot, but they were the same person. Yeah. But it's like she's playing a part up there, whereas like in real life, she's just kind of being herself. Totally. So and coincidentally, I mean, I think that's the thing. If you even know actors, even non-big actors, and then you see them in a movie, like when people aren't involved in film, they think there's a connection between the two. But like, if you have a friend and you see them in a movie, they're not, that like the friend you hang out with is not the character they're playing on the TV. Yeah. Right. So, but yeah. Okay. So
Fox and Conan, I was just, summer.
So that summer, but what did you learn?
What did I learn?
One sentence, if you're just sum it up.
Ooh, what did I learn?
Could just be a coming of age experience that I can do hard things or whatever.
I think it was, here's what I learned. When you're like really following your passion or like, and it's something you're meant to, do you know what I mean? I mean, I don't, or it's something that, and whatever that means, if you're meant to work in it, if you're meant to learn from it, just like if you're really like going for it and taking a leap of faith and it's like aligned, things will just like happen. Like I remember.
So if anything can happen, yeah. So things.
No, but like if you are really, if you take away those like, oh, I don't know, like the I don't knows, like, because you think of, there's all these people, there's something funny about like the most talented people I know are some of the most like questioning themselves of like, no, it's not good enough. And then I know so many idiots who are just like, oh, I got this. You know what I mean? And just putting themselves out there. They're like, yeah, I'm going to be the next big thing or whatever. And it's like, sometimes I think confidence, if it's all you have, like you got to lean into that. But there's something so admirable about that too. Like they're just going for it and believing in themselves. And sometimes things happen for them because anyway, not calling myself an idiot, but when I was in LA and the same thing happened in New York, cause I went there afterwards for like stand up and stuff. Yeah. Like my rent was about to run out and I was like, I think I might have to go home. This is when I went back to LA and someone just swooped in and was like, hey, I have this like really cool place with really cool roommates and it's like the cheapest rent you can imagine in LA. Like, do you want it? And that was like the last day or something when I was like, do you need to go home? And I was was like, yes.
Oh, great.
Or you just meet people, like meeting, okay, the stage manager led me to the award shows, and that led me to, and I have all these great friends from Conan now that, I now have good contacts and stuff.
That's
and,
true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think like what I said, if you follow the flow, if you
Well, and also if you're able, again, I think you don't fully recognize or appreciate like how many
grind.
gates you got through
to do
totally,
that. Yeah.
And then you got there and you did a good job.
No, totally,
but it's amazing how small of a world it is if you can make it through to that point.
But I think there's times when I agree with you, but I think there's something about believing in yourself when things are not going well, because I had times before that when I did apply to things that did not go through.
Of course, yeah.
Or like I've had plenty of times after that where I'm like, okay, this is not working out. Or when I didn't make the sketch comedy show, I'm like, I totally thought, this would work out or whatever, and I feel like I'd be a good fit. So I don't know why, but then I found.
Well, I can tell you, there's a million different reasons why. I hadn't said. My mother was actually faculty advisor for Divine Comedy for 15 years, and my brother was president, and I was a writer.
Oh, okay.
And so I know very much how that group works.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
I was involved in long enough. I was like 3 or 4 different casts.
Yeah.
So I know. Yeah, it's weird.
Apparently there was a girl who was kind of like me who didn't want me there.
Yeah. No, that would be it. No, it's like, she's going to take all my parts.
Well,
she's out. That would totally happen.
Well, because then I got some insight from like another girlfriend there, and they were saying, well, yeah, there's not a lot of like great parts that are written for the girls. You know what I mean? Like they're always like and sometimes there are, but that was her experience with it. And so I think I can kind of have empathy for like, okay, she was dealing with scraps, you know what I mean? Cause she was the straight man, or they didn't really know what to.
Well, I mean,
anyway.
it's like, I guess there's 2 personalities in any sketch comedy group. There are ones who write, and then there's the ones who just act. And the ones who write and act tend to be the most happy in a sketch comedy group, because they can write parts for themselves that are good. But if you're an actor and you don't have the ability to write humor for yourself, then you're always at the mercy of the people who write.
Yeah.
And so, and there you have it.
I'd love to get your insight on that actually, because as I write and I act, but I sometimes when I get sent scripts, it's just sort of creatively, I like seeing what I can do with it, but sometimes I get things I'm like, I wouldn't quite say that there. Or like, I can't fully be like me. I can be the type they've written, but it's kind of trying to fit what they want, which is valuable and everything. And like, that's but I think like my skill set is more like trying to be me, or like having my unique voice, or like,
if somebody's written a script, it's your job to execute the character in the script. And if they cast you can bring what you have to it.
That's what I mean. But
yeah,
I'm trying to figure out. So as I'm writing and stuff, sometimes, like I produced this one thing, and I remember I was trying to write for people, and I'm like, I can kind of write for them, but I want to see what they bring to it, because they were just so distinct in them, and it was really fun, like having them come and, kind of work the lines and everything. And I'm like, yes, that's them. Anyway. But I know like sometimes, I don't know, just as with writing, like sometimes scripts are limiting to me, or not limiting, because there's also freedom and limitations, but just trying to fit that is hard.
Well, if you're an actor,
sometimes.
well, and also there can be really bad scripts. What is it? There's a good example of this. Like there's a scene in what's his name? But again, you have to be a good writer.
Yeah.
And you have to have those discussions.
Yeah.
And the director or the writer, they're gonna be mad at you.
Well, that's
because they believe that what they wrote is great. And
yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. Well, that's the funny thing, because the director.
I wouldn't come up with line changes.
Oh, no.
The time when you're shooting.
I'm talking about more trying to figure out what I like about it and what I don't, since filmmaking's the topic, sort of.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I learned like through acting and stuff, I've learned how important directing is, because I've had people direct me and then I watch it later. I'm like, I look like such a bad actor, because it's like I couldn't follow. I was like maybe they had a different sense of humor than I did or something. And it just, maybe I wasn't right for the part, if that's what they wanted, kind of a thing. And so I'm kind of being shoehorned into like doing that. And because I wasn't acting from a natural place, I just looked like such a bad actor.
That's a hard thing. And
yeah.
No, it's, and yeah, no. So yeah, no, that's one of the things with acting is trying to get a role that works for you.
Yeah.
But
Or any role.
or any role, period.
Yes.
No, that's true. Honestly, I feel if you're an actor and you get cast in something, you should just be the happiest person ever.
Absolutely.
Because there's a bazillion other people who want to do it.
And it's fun to do. I just mean, sorry, I'm not speaking ungratefully as like, oh, as an actor, but I just mean like going on this podcast and stuff, I'm kind of thinking about like, okay, who do I want to be creatively? And that's the place I'm coming from. Like, what do I like about that? And how am I trying to bring things together? Because it sounds like, you know what you want to do. You're, filmmaking and everything. And you've got, a podcast and everything. It sounds like you've kind of done a good job of bringing together multi-disciplines and
yeah. I do. I work in a lot of different mediums.
Yeah.
Like it's true. Like, and I don't know, that's something we talked about before and something you wanted to bring up what is like to work in different mediums and how to bring them together. And that's the magic of film. It's like bring them all together.
Yeah,
that's
in fact,
cool. My first job in the arts, no joke, was being a newspaper columnist for the Daily Herald.
Really?
Yeah, I was a newspaper columnist for the Daily Herald for 2 years. Huh. And that's how I got into photography, and photography is how I got into film.
See, I think that's a flow to me.
Yeah.
That's feels like a flow.
No, and again, I've noticed it's very unusual because most photographers, so I am actually, I don't know, in a way I feel I'm a stronger writer than a photographer even. Mm-hmm. But it's an unusual skill pairing.
Well, and also your skills with like business and stuff. I remember you telling me about how you figured out, the rental business and everything. And I was impressed because I was like, that's something, it's not necessarily creative, you wouldn't think, but you brought in
business,
those skills.
Starting Redfinch, and of course, I've actually started a whole bunch of businesses. No, and that's the thing, and I think someone said this, I can't remember, it's not coming to my head, but money is the paint of film. And so it's so expensive. So if you don't know how to handle money, then you just don't know how to make a film.
Interesting.
Because it really is, it's very labor intensive.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And so if you don't know how to handle money, you can't make a movie.
And I love how so going into kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as having a lot of different interests, I love whenever people say they don't have passions, I always ask okay, what'd you like to do when you were a kid? Because I love how you can see sort of the raw materials of who they're meant to be in a way. Yeah. When they're little, it's when I think back, I'm okay, I loved poetry or my mom was saying I used to draw a lot of expressive things. I loved writing. I liked trying to write a novel, but then I also I had this binder that I would try to make, International Kids Club or whatever. Yeah. And I was very organized there. And that's not necessarily a creative skill, but I bring that organization sort of into what I do. And I think as I grew, I sort of started to feel guilty because, not only can you get scattered with that, it's a double-edged sword. If you have so many things pulling you, you can totally, just not do anything or kind of lose yourself in that. Or because I ran into, after Conan, I had all these people saying so are you writing a script? So are you doing this? And I was like, I could write a script. And so I started writing a script. And then they're like, oh, but you got to do your packet for the show. And I'm like, okay. And I was kind of just listening to I could do this, you know what I mean? Yeah. And also, what's the right thing? And it took some slowing down after that to really, I'm in a place now where I have a much better idea of what I want to do, but it was definitely took a while to get there. And I think I used to feel bad about, it's very telling that I felt guilty about having, talents, and I feel bad that I felt that way. And I hope I don't want other people to feel that way too, because I think a lot of times I hear the phrase "jack of all trades, master of none," and that's just a very defeating and kind of disparaging phrase to me. You know what I mean? Where it's you're a jack, you're a jester of, and you'll never be a master of what you do. And that was so sad to me because I felt I felt like I could do something of substance, and that's how it kind of integrated in my mind. And now I sort of see it as Renaissance man or woman. That sounds so much better to me.
No, it's true. Well, I think that it is a danger, and I see this myself, that the thing is you need to have deadlines. Because with any project and any medium, the fun part is the very beginning. Yeah. And the hard part is finishing. Totally. And so it's easy to get stuck in I wrote 3 lines of a poem and then I left it, and then I did this and then I left it, and then I did this and I left it. So but you just need to you need to have a goal, and you have to say I'm going to finish. Yeah. Even when it gets unfun.
Yeah. And just to finish that thought, with the Renaissance man or woman, that just feels a lot better, reclaiming it that way, because it's you don't feel, you can see the hugely positive aspects of that. Who's to say Da Vinci's not as great as Mozart. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're the Da Vinci's. And
Yeah. But again, I don't know. It's funny. Da Vinci, no, and I'm pro that. No,
like
don't
he had
pro.
a lot
I
of
work in a lot of
different
different
interests. He had a
No, I
messy
did.
journal,
Yeah.
like,
But he didn't really finish much.
but
you
we
know?
talk about him to this
We
day.
do.
You know?
But no, and he did. But we talk about him mainly for his sketchbook.
Okay,
which is
better
interesting.
example. Better example then would be looking today
There
like
are only 7 Da Vinci paintings in existence.
Oh, okay. Well,
So,
they were great paintings.
They were
though.
great paintings. He's a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think also I felt guilty about having half finished projects and stuff. And nowadays I have revisited them and I finished them and I'm really happy with them. And
No,
it was
it's good.
because
It's
you need
always
your
hard to
subconscious
finish.
to kind of stew on it. And like, it's okay if you don't always finish things because they'll lead to other things. And I think a better example than if you don't like Da Vinci.
No,
is,
Da Vinci's fine. No, Da Vinci is a
but
fine example.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. But I think like Bo Burnham, he has a lot of different things he brings together: music, comedy, even like stage lights and everything, and video and YouTube. And or Moses Storm, he's like an example of a stand-up. He does like this really cool art show with his stand-up. And so looking to people like that, where just seeing it as a plus instead of like I don't know. I feel like we focus too much on the negatives.
No, it's true. Well, no, I mean, there's always insecurity, and when you're making anything, I mean, my view, this is how like any project goes for me. I start it and I think it's amazing. And about halfway through, I think it's terrible.
Yeah.
75% of the way through, I want to quit, but I'm like, well, I've done 75%. I'm just going to freaking finish it. And then when it's done, I think it's okay. And somehow, if it does well, I'm like out in the world. And that's another thing. I think you can even get stuck in the trap of just because it's scary to like send your stuff off to festivals in the film or whatever. It's just easier like, well, I'll just finish it. I'll stick it in my shelf and I'm done.
Yeah.
But send it off, put it like you should be at least putting 10 or 20% of the effort of making it into trying to get people to see it. And then if it does well, during that time, I'm like, I guess it's okay. Like if it gets into a ton of film festivals or something. But then after I'm done, I think back on it. I'm like, man, that wasn't very good. But then I'll look back. I'm like, no, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of surprises you. Like you'll look back at it like maybe 3 years later and be like, oh, yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Well, that's actually why I don't mind half-finished projects is what I've learned. I go back to the half-finished project that I thought sucked at the 75%. And I'm like, this is pretty good. And then I can finish it.
No, it's true. Well, honestly, I'll even, especially been in art for a while now, you have ideas that you had like when you were in high school. And you thought like, well, that wasn't good, but it stuck with you. And you're like, I should do that. And then turned out to be one of your best ideas.
Totally.
Or you made something in high school and you even finished it and it did something. But you're like, no, I still like that idea, but I'm way better now. I can do it again better.
Yeah. Like
and do it bigger.
Totally.
And that's a common thing.
And I think sometimes like I had this script in my head for a while, like that was really developing in my head, but I had a really hard time just getting it out, and I had some passes and stuff like that, but just... And I wasn't in a good headspace then, and it just wasn't working. And it really got to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't think this is ever going to happen. You know what I mean? Like I'm picturing my timeline. It's very overwhelming. But then now, time is relative. Like some years pass like that, and then others like feel like they really take their time. And like, I think when things are happening fast for you, it's freaky because like with Conan and stuff, all this stuff was coming at me really fast. And
that's true. You have no idea how big.
Gotta go. And you want to take advantage of everything. And there's a lot of pressure comes with that and you have to manage it. And I think with, I'm losing my train of thought, but with doing things fast, hello, editor.
Well, when you're coming up with things, you can have a lot of ideas come out, but then you select them, you focus.
This is what I was going to say. I don't feel bad when that happens anymore because I think timing has a lot to do with it too. Like I look at that script and I'm like, there's things I had to learn to like make this click and make sense. Yeah. That now I'm like, oh, this is why I couldn't finish it. And also like that script, like just this week, like it just came flowing out of me. Yeah. And I have like a ton of it done and I don't know what happened. It's like the floodgates opened, Yeah. So it's cool. Things can happen quickly. If you're intimidated and like, I don't have, I'm in my 30s now and I don't have a good start. And like, I don't, just in your head about whatever, things can happen very quickly. And I think they happen quicker when you follow your flow, like I said. No, I mean, and I think a lot of art and stuff is just finding what is kind of like what your story you can tell. Totally. And finding what comes easy to you rather than trying to be somebody else. Yes. And the stand-up comedy is the ultimate in that. Totally. Finding your own personal voice. And I think that's why I was I don't know if I'll say meant to, but like why I'm grateful I didn't make the sketch group and did stand up, because I think sketch would have been so much fun, but like stand up, I really had to, it was just me there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, like refining that. And
you're writing for yourself.
Yeah.
You're like a one man show.
I really figure out like how I feel about things by writing them. Like I remember with art, I think that's such a strength of art. Like I was asking my mom about, okay, when I was younger, cause I thought maybe you'd ask me about like, you know, what, tell me about your art journey or something.
Yeah.
And she said that I used to draw all the time, like ever since I was like 1 or something. And she thought, she was like, it was your way of understanding the world. Like I remember my thumb got caught in the car door. She slammed it and she felt so bad. And then after I was like, Mommy, draw a hand.
Oh,
And what a guilt trip. Like, it's so hilarious to me.
that is funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. So yeah, he's injuries and was healed through art.
Yeah.
Healed through art.
Yeah.
So now you talked about like you were in a funk for a while and you feel like you're coming out of that funk. How did you get out of the funk in art? Because that's a common thing. It's like, again, especially when you're like young, like art just seems like an exciting, endless adventure. And you just kind of wonder how anybody could ever get disenchanted with it.
Yes.
But after you've done it for a decade or so, you're like, I have a different relationship, especially if you're financially dependent on it. And so it can really change. So it's very important to stay motivated though. So how did that happen?
So there's a lot of pieces in this that I'm gonna kind of gloss over. It's just like if we're
going to get the rated G version.
Yes.
That's fine. And that's fine.
Just just because, but I'll explain the heart of it or whatever. Because I think if we're storytellers, I basically after Conan, I had like my big story arcs and I just challenges that were like compounding on top of each other. I'm like, why is this happening to me? And, but like, it's such a story. It's just everything that came,
So right after Conan.
Not right after Conan. That's when I went to New York and did stand up and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was fun. But I was starting to like lose myself a little bit there. Yeah. Just with doubt. And I don't know why I just got so in my head about like, sometimes I wonder how beneficial it is or not to like share your dreams with people, because then you get input or even like imaginary
people are also
input.
just kind of jerks. No, really. No, they'll be like, oh, like I got this all the time. Oh, you want to be a photographer? What are you going to do with that? Or you're going to be a filmmaker. Poverty.
And I think
they're kind of just acting out their own, like.
It makes them feel better.
Well, I don't know. It's
sometimes.
It definitely makes them feel better. You know, like they're an accountant or something. And they're just kind of like they took the rational choice.
That's what I mean. You're not, some people take that and it works out great for them. But sometimes I think people speak from a place of like, oh, you can't do this successfully if like I was too scared to try even.
No, exactly. Yeah. Well, you'll see that.
Reality.
I mean, maybe I've been guilty of this several times myself. But again, the wonderful things about being young is you don't know how hard it is to do things.
Yeah.
And so you'll see a young person and they'll be like, I'm going to be Steven Spielberg. And you're like, the state of Utah, 4 million people has generated, had 2, maybe 3 Hollywood directors come through. And you're going to be one of them. You're going to be the 4th. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, not really. But at the same time, you have a great life in film, even if you're not a Hollywood director. And, I guess if you're 20, you should be saying that. It's kind of weird if you're not.
But like, it's like what, somebody probably said that to Steven Spielberg, and how much did he let it get in his head, They just heard he's a director, and it's like, oh, you're a director. Like,
Well, he has a great story on that he met John Ford. But he had enough connections to meet John Ford at 17.
Oh, I see. But it was just an example. But
I like that's.
You're friends with Steven Spielberg. I didn't know you were also friends with Steven Spielberg.
Oh, no, I'm not. No, this is in a movie.
I know, I'm kidding.
This is in a movie. But he knew somebody. He was friends with the guy who had an office next to John Ford, which is like, at 17. So in a way, it was less irrational for him to say it. But no, it's true. Like you can, and it does happen. Like I had a friend who, one of our a good client of mine from the very beginning, and he was here in Utah working, good jobs and stuff. And then he went to LA and he became a stunt performer on several stunt performer for a A-list star.
Wow.
And it was like, that was actually his dream.
Yeah.
You know, he loved going to the gym. He loved, combat workout, and he was working as a DP on a low level thing.
Yeah.
He met the head stunt guy for a bunch of Hollywood things, and he got hired, and he just has had a great time.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, and it's amazing to me how quickly it was like in 6 months that changed his whole life.
Yeah, that's the thing. The nenext day could change your life. But I think what I'm hearing from you, and I'm taking it in, and I'm agreeing with some of what you're saying as far as like, because you could say like, oh, follow your dreams to anyone, right? And it's like,
exactly. Yeah.
But I think it goes back to what we were talking about with like fame. It's like, why do you want fame, for example? Some people, it's like, do you really have a passion for acting, or do you need to be validated for your dad didn't, or
a common
something?
thing. No, and honestly, the weird thing is there's no connection between talent and you want to be validated because your dad left you. Well, so, but you gotta have talent. That's
and also that makes me think of, I've thought a lot about, I used to want to be famous more than I do now. If I did now, it would be more like, oh, because I'm appreciated for what I produce. You know what I mean? But before it was like, I just think it'd be fun to be famous. And as I've, gone to therapy and stuff like that, I've started to like heal from that, I guess. Or like,
I've gotten over it.
It really, but it scared me because I'm like, I feel myself not caring to be famous as much, and I'm terrified because it's like, how much do you want to heal as an artist? You know what I mean? It's like we talk about tortured geniuses and stuff like that, and why are so many comedians depressed? And it's like, is this taking away? And I think John Mulaney's journey kind of gets into that as well. Like
that's a great stand routine. That's the best routine I've seen about addiction. I have a lot of addicts on one side of my extended family, and when I saw that, I was like, that nailed it. Because usually you kind of like, people kind of glorify addiction in movies. Like, it's like, oh, I'm so cool, I'm drunk. I mean, even if it's a movie that's trying to condemn it. But his stand-up routine is basically, the thesis of it is, you think you're being, it's on Netflix, you can go watch it, John Mulaney. And it's like, the thesis of it is, you think you're being really clever when you're an addict, but really you're being controlled by the drug, and you're doing a lot of really dumb things. Yeah. And that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. And you're outsmarting yourself when you're being clever. Like,
yeah, exactly. And you're being clever and destroying yourself. And the entire time you're thinking, I'm like outsmarting the world, but you're just totally controlled by the drug. Yeah.
Totally. I forgot what was before that, but as far as like, and I think if you're really passionate about the art, I think it's more like, chicken and the egg, as far as like, okay, creatives being depressed or, things like that. But I think we sort of tend to see it as like, oh, you have to be depressed or like have a funky mind to be a comedian. But I think it's more like our brains are sometimes more wired for like neurodivergence, and therefore we can go down destructive paths if we don't rein that in, but if we rein it in, it makes like beautiful things,
No, it's true. And I think one of the hard things about art is that good art comes from and you even see this, like, fun fact, I just finished the biography of Walt Disney, which is fascinating. I mean, you just think it's going to be kind of, oh, the guy who made Peter Pan cartoons, but it's not. He is nothing like his persona. And he was a chain-smoking alcoholic. Yeah. And but he made Mickey Mouse on the very moment, on the train ride home, when he just found out his distributor ripped off all of his intellectual content of the studio he'd been working on for multiple years. Yeah. And he had just been informed by his brother that his most loyal employee, he thought, had just betrayed him. And everybody had quit. So he had no employees, he had no intellectual property, he had no business. And that's when he thought of Mickey Mouse.
I love that moment.
No, it's true. I think like making art when you're miserable or when you're happy is kind of when the best stuff's going to happen. But it's weird because during those times, that's the last thing you feel like doing. Yeah. And
and it's so...
But that's when the best ideas come.
And also the baby steps are the big steps, Like when you take a baby step, sometimes I feel like you quantum leap like right after that.
No, it's true. It's fun. I mean, inspiration, and when you're doing something unique, when something comes together, it's just really a magical moment. Like I in my second book, like all of the best 20 photographs were shot within a 3-day time period. And to me, it's just amazing. I remember like starting out at the beginning of that 3 days, I was completely broke at the time. I barely had even gas to drive to the location. Money, that was like a stretch for me at the time. And I was like, there's no way I can get a good picture out of this. And then just 3 days of shooting, I got some of the best pictures of my life.
What? Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you never know. And another time for me, probably I had a single photograph remake my entire Vita. Like it got into so many museum shows. It's actually currently in so many permanent collections. Not totally my fault, but I mean, it's like, well, I took the photograph obviously, but it got into a portfolio like best art photographers in Utah.
Cool.
And then it was acquired by a whole bunch of museums. So I kind of piggybacked on that portfolio.
Yeah.
But anyway, this photograph I took when I was driving. I had just been bitten twice by a terrible spider, venomous spider. I was sleeping in the Ozarks that night. I got up and I found that I had an open wound on my foot about 4 inches long because the venom had gone down my vein and created
like
an open
necrosis kind of a
Yeah,
thing?
it was like a really
gosh.
bad, like, I don't know what type of spider it was, but it was like a really venomous one. And then also it must have been in my sleeping bag. So it bit me on my feet and then it got scared and it climbed and it bit me on my stomach. And so my stomach was swelling. And I was miserable actually. And the friend I was with at the time was like, boy, man, Mark, you need to go to a doctor. And I'm like, I don't need to go to a doctor because I'm a stupid guy. And so I just felt miserable. And I went but that evening I went and photographed in Tennessee and I got this single photograph that remade my entire Vita. Because it got in so many publications and so many shows and so many museums.
See, I love that.
So yeah, no, and it's fine. And I was totally miserable. I wondered why he's even doing it. Why he's even in this position.
Yeah.
I was definitely should have gone to a hospital.
Yeah.
But there you have it.
It totally reminds me of that Taoist, I think it is like kind of thing where it's like, oh, you got sent to war. I'm sorry. And you're like, maybe. Like, and it basically just all these like good and bad things come to them and they're like, maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
No, it's true. I think often the worst thing that happens to you can often be the best thing.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of that's where you get reborn.
Yeah.
And that's where you
reborn.
figure what really you want, what's really important in your life.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like the things I went through just like killed my not killed, but like it just, reborn's a good word for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm so grateful for the things. First of all, I'm so happy that I don't have any of the things I wanted when I was 18. And I was sad about it at the time. And
no John Samos?
Not everything, but
I wish I had John Samos.
Yeah, mostly with the guys.
He still looks good. That guy's aged better than anybody else.
Yeah. But sorry.
So you're glad that you got you realized where
just I now have like I am such a richer person for like the things I've and I'm sorry to like obfuscate. I don't mean to, I just want to keep it on filmmaking for the sake of listeners or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can if you want, but it's
no,
just
it's
more.
fine.
Yeah. But I think, editor, step in. I forget where we are again.
Okay. So you're really okay. So you were reborn, and what did you? So you're in a dark space, and you're reborn. So when you came out of the dark space, what did you find? Like, oh, this is what I like. This is what is keeps me going.
Well, first of all, what I learned from it was, and what I've been forced to learn from it on the journey is just like I have to not care what people think. Like, and it's the same. It reminds me of it's the most like arc in my life. Does that make sense? Where it's like the character starts out and I just spent a lot of my life like trying to be perfect and trying to be, the best kind of palatable, micro shifts to like please everyone. And I succeeded sometimes with that. And I thought that's what life was kind of about, I guess, without thinking about it too deeply. And then just certain things that I'm excited to talk about another time, but just like where I felt like I had to hide or things I had to be ashamed of or things that were breaking me. I was like, I don't know where to go from here. Like it reminds me of what you're talking about. You brought up 2 stories now with you and Walt Disney, where you're kind of at the all hope is lost moment, you know? And it's so interesting that in both cases in real life, that was when Act 3 saved the day or whatever, or whenever it is. And I think it's so interesting how film, it has this structure, right? Where it's like the all hope is lost moment is usually in a film, depending on the type. And I wonder if that's like because it reflects life or if those are just the stories we hear. But it is really interesting. Like I just, for me, that was my all hope is lost. It just like pushed me into my rebirth,
Yeah.
And I'm just.
Well, no, that's the thing. I mean, there's that rock bottom moment. Honestly, I think a lot of people the worst thing that can happen to them.
Yeah.
And you see this like with stories of guys who fought in World War II, and then they go on to like live this amazing life because they faced death and they knew like they got back and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm alive.
Yeah.
And they lived every day like it was a gift.
Yeah.
But like in a way, I think our lives are so easy, and you can see this happen with a lot of people, that they're just kind of like in this low level, kind of miserable for a long time, and they don't really ever like find really like what they want to do and why they're here, and they have no purpose.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of lost, and it's just sad.
If you feel that way, just ask yourself what I liked to do when I was a kid.
Yeah, there you go. But
but
but I think you're able to get there because you went through a dark space.
No, exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. But I really found myself like who I am. I remember and it's anyway, the arc is it's just been battles of like, okay, here's a crossroads. I can so easily get magnetized back to like my old ways, or like or doing my art for other people. Yeah. And sometimes that can be fun, I'm not like disparaging that, but I've just had a lot stewing in me for a long time that I'm like, oh, I can't say this, or like I think of all the things that everyone in the world is going to think, and from each individual standpoint, and like how I can make it look prettier for them, or how I can. Or, actually, I just had a conversation with my dad last night where he was like, hey, I didn't like that joke you did. Like, you were in pain. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's the art. We kind of got into a debate of like, is it okay to, like, I think it's so beautiful to take pain and make art out of it, just to transmute it. And my case was, I believe, we can heal in different ways. And I think I'm wired in a way where it's a gift. I think he was like, comedy is not the best way to heal. Like, you can just like let go or whatever. But then it's like, okay, back to Taylor Swift. It's like, if she just let go of it all, I wouldn't have the song that made me feel better when I'm not feeling good, Yeah, yeah. And I think it's the most beautiful way you can heal.
Well, in a way it is. I mean, I think it takes like a little distance. Like, you need to see that person as like another person. I mean, there are like people who lose a tremendous amount of money because they make like therapy movies. Yeah. They're like, oh, I went through a divorce, I'm going to do a movie about divorce. Right. But like, well, I think but if you have some distance, you can come up with a very good movie. Yeah. About divorce. Yeah. And well, you
need to live your story before you can reread it.
Or even just have a little emotional distance. Yeah. But
that's what I mean. Like,
see it as something like you're out of it. But but at the same time, no, of course, like our life experiences. And again, it's like, in a way, life can be too comfortable. And like, I think in a way we're taught to avoid risks. There's so much like safety, like that somehow safety's gonna, if we're not super safe, that we're doing something wrong. And this is physically and socially and mentally. Yeah. But like, you need to take risks. You need to try out for the comedy troupe. You need to do these things, and then you learn and grow through all of it. If you're not taking those risks, and you're going to have to risk failure, you need to ask that girl out. You need to, I mean, just over and over again, go for that job, learn that skill, whatever. But again, we really kind of think that avoiding failure is the goal of life. But it's really not. It's to go for it, take risks, and live your life to the fullest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's short.
Yeah.
And honestly, you're all going to die. Sorry. Everyone dies.
Except for Walt Disney. He's frozen.
There you go. Yeah. So, but we're all going to die, so you might as well just go for it.
Yeah, I love that. Because it's so easy, like the easiest thing in the world to just not step on that stage.
No, or think you could step on that stage, be just kind of passing it, be really wanted, or but you're just taking that risk. And stand-up comedy is probably the ultimate in that, because it's just you and the stage and what you wrote and what you're saying. Whereas like as your story, like you can be like, oh, it was a bad script or it was a bad shot, or like, and that's a film. With film, it's easy to like pass things off, like, oh, if only I could have cast Nicole Kidman, then it would have been a good movie. Or but well, you need but at the same time, you need to own it all. But stand-up comedy, that is the rawest art form, I feel. Yeah,
and I feel like it made it so hard to have the messy stage I needed. You know what I mean? With any art, you need to let yourself be bad, as they say. And part of it was like, I would have people come up to me like, hey, you're so funny for like a girl. Like I had no idea women could be funny or something like that. Like I literally had that. And I think when I got those comments, I'm like, okay, I have to kill it every time because I'm representing like women here.
All of women now.
And I'm like,
no, you just have to be.
No, exactly. And I've gotten past that now, but it's like, it's, you know, as a woman, who cares what people think? That was hard, an obstacle. And I wouldn't show people. I would just like toil away, and I would never finish the projects. I would get to I would spend the last, 90% of the time on the last 10%. Cause I knew if I had to finish it, I had to show people. And then it's like, and I have a fear of like, it's so hard because I struggle to even finish outlines because I've had like 3 friends read my diary. That's the whole thing. And it's hard being so interesting, I guess. But like it's given me this complex of like, okay, my first draft, someone's going to read it and think this is my best work. And it just freaks me out. And
that's the fear thing.
Yeah.
You just need to go for it.
Yep.
You just got to risk it and honestly, I mean, I think a big reason, a way to do that as an artist, and this is me, like and this is even a arc I went through. I mean, I've gone through this. I've had to relearn this lesson many times. Like you make something, you're like, especially if you're in a class or something, like, what will my teacher like? And you make it, and then you're like, your teacher's like, doesn't like it. And you're like, oh, geez, well, that work totally failed because my audience of one didn't like it. In fact, I remember this is even like first photography course I took in college, and the teacher was so dumb. Oh my goodness! But like, I did a really pretty clever. I mean, I'm proud of my little 17-year-old self, and I did like a series about a girl who sticks her fingers in a power outlet and then they glow.
Wait, okay, this is so weird. We're having a lot of crossover with Creatively. Keep going.
Yeah. So it's like, the first thing you tell your kids is not to stick their finger in power outlets. But the thesis of the story is why every kid should stick their finger in power outlets, because then your fingers will glow. So like risk electrocution to get your fingers to glow. And there's a powerful metaphor in that. It's risk taking. But my teacher was like, this is such a dumb story. Like, I can't even believe it. That would never even happen. And I was just like, and then this is the telling thing. Another girl in the class, she did a story of like, it was just like 3 perfectly symmetrical photographs of a girl eating a watermelon, and then she turned into a watermelon. Like the last was just of a watermelon. Yeah. And he just went on for like 10 minutes, how this is the best thing ever. And like, that's just such a dumb series of photos. I mean, so anyway, but see, it failed. But so after a while, with that failure, you realize like, wait, I just have to do what I want because I'm my audience. And so you just write for yourself. And then if somebody else likes it, that's great. Yeah. Like that, because that's the way you're going to be. Because at the end of the day, probably that's the only thing that's going to come of it. Yeah. Sorry,
quick thing is we definitely wrote very different stories, but just like a lot of the things you're saying I've thought about before. And then that specifically was like a part of, it reminded me a ton of like the script I was telling you like flowed out of me. So anyways,
well, there you go. No, that's fine. No, in fact, actually, before this interview, I just finished watching at the movie theater the Academy Award nominating shorts and short films that were nominated for Academy Awards. And one of them is about a woman who discovers that she's a robot through the CAPTCHA test. Oh, funny. And so she's CAPTCHA. Those are like highlight all the crosswalks. They do it so you can't like run a scam with a robot on a website. And so she's doing it. She keeps failing. And so she calls customer support and she's like, I can't log into my computer because I keep failing these CAPTCHA tests that say that I'm not a human. And they're like, oh, well, maybe you're a robot. Anyway, she turns out to be a robot.
Interesting.
But the funny thing about that, I mean, it just shows like how stuff's out there. Like I had a bit where that was my joke. I was like, my bit was, I always fail CAPTCHA tests. Those sidewalks seem to just hide. I think I am a robot. And there was just like a very short joke, but I was like, I mean, someone took that and really ran with it and they made a great movie. And so, ideas are out there. Yeah. And
and it's not, I think that's a part of it too, is just learning like, oh, if someone doesn't like it, maybe they're just not your audience. Maybe it's amazing. Like, it's like, you could be the juiciest peach in the world and somebody just doesn't like peaches, or my style. Sometimes, it's very collage-y, my writing. And sometimes people look at it and say like, this is very convoluted. And, sometimes there's validity to that criticism, but then also some people see it and see like a gorgeous collage and they like get it. And,
finding where it connects. I mean, I think, also realizing where your work fits, know, and again, I think it's easy to like to like.
I've been embracing chaos. So.
Yeah, I'm in chaos. Yeah. And so, and I do think that's a problem of living in a small market, which I'm sure many listeners will be, is that like, I mean, I even realized that like I could either like do art for the art market where there maybe there's like 3 or 4 venues and they have a very particular taste, or I could think of like the whole world.
Yeah.
And like the whole world is just as valid. And like, so why, but if you're just like showing your mom or you're not in a very artistically sophisticated culture where they even haven't seen a lot of different ways of doing things, they'll just kind of be like, oh, but that's not like that watermelon story I was telling you. Like, oh, that's not what I was. Yeah. That my taste, and I'd find out later with this teacher that his tastes were like perfectly symmetrical, like technically precise, black and white landscapes. Totally. And so again, it's like that's just not my audience. Yeah. And again, he would like the things he was interested in were just not even on my radar at all. Yeah. And I found out there's my audience, my market was bigger and more exciting. Yeah. So
well, I think sometimes people think like, okay, if I don't like it, then it's not good. And I think they put that on you a bit where it's like, well, I don't, it's not my taste, so it must suck.
No, that's true. Yeah. And everybody's a critic. You know, I mean, that's like classic thing because everybody kind of fancies themselves consuming some sort of art or something. Yeah. But really, I mean, that's where like talking to people who have a lot of experience and have seen a lot of things. And that's where like editors and curators who really experienced curators at major museums, they just have a perspective that very few people have. Yeah. And they can tell you, I mean, their feedback matters more than just a lot of people.
Yeah. And I'm trying to like write in a sense where I'm writing if every critic in the world hated it, if I'm reaching in the bedroom of, this sounds so creepy, if my art is like, just someone laying in bed listening to it like depressed and it resonates with like one person, that's what I want to write, Yeah. And even, because I've needed that sometimes. And anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, anyway, I think we've had a great discussion. We're kind of running out of time here, but it's really great talking to you, Meghan. Do you have a website or anything?
Yeah. Well, my Instagram is megbean1, bean like jelly bean. And I used to have a website. I have to update the blog.
No, that's fine. Go check her out on Instagram.
Oh, I have a YouTube. So it's 00 Meghan Bean, or you could just look up my name, Meghan Bean, Meghan with an H. So,
Bean, what a great comedic last name.
I'm starting to.
You're Mrs. Bean.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys later. Tune in to the other Red, Green, Blue podcast episodes.
You have a great podcast voice, by the way.